Let's begin with a structural overview. Welcome to another lecture. Today we consider WWE Clash in Italy in May 2026, which, despite the spectacle, rewards a methodical analysis. I am Professor Alexei, and with me is Priyanka, and together we will trace how a single event in Turin both reflected and reshaped WWE's international playbook.
So, I guess we can start by thinking about the basic question. What exactly was Clash in Italy for someone who does not follow wrestling closely?
Before we get to the complexities, the layperson's definition is straightforward. A WWE pay-per-view and live streaming event staged in May 2026 at the Inalpi Arena in Turin, Italy, featuring 5 professional wrestling matches with titles and stipulations at stake. In more technical terms, we are examining a node in WWE's international expansion network. The matches are scripted with predetermined outcomes, but the live performance, audience response, and production decisions are highly real in their implications for brand equity and market development.
I've been wondering about this. Can we say that the event also functioned as a kind of test case for distribution strategies, like how viewers could access it?
It's crucial to understand the distribution layer. Clash in Italy was sold on traditional pay-per-view worldwide, streamed on ESPN in the United States, on Netflix in most international markets, on SuperSport in sub-Saharan Africa, and on Abema in Japan. Notably, in the United States, the first hour was simulcast on ESPN as a sampler. Then the remainder required PPV or streaming access. This hybrid funnel borrowed from broader sports media logics. Offer a no-friction on-ramp, then capitalize on conversion once commitment is high.
Building on that, why was the event significant, beyond just entertainment?
We observed 2 stakes. First, international expansion. This was WWE's first ever PPV and live streaming event hosted in Italy, indicating a deliberate broadening of European anchors beyond the usual hubs. Second, the ESPN simulcast in the US signaled a calibrated crossover into mainstream sports broadcasting. Aligning with ESPN confers the optics of parity with live sport properties while preserving premium monetization for the rest of the card. Strategically, both moves increase discoverability and normalize WWE beside flagship sports content.
So yeah, moving on. Could we get the core facts and a bit of the timeline? The when, who, and what happened?
Let's start with the history. In September 2025, WWE President Nick Khan announced that 2026 would feature the company's first PPV in Italy. In February 2026, Paul Triple H Levesque confirmed the name Clash in Italy, the date in May 2026, and the venue, the Inalpi Arena in Turin. Importantly, the next night's Monday Night Raw, in June 2026, would emanate from the same arena. This consolidation optimized production logistics and sustained local buzz. Tickets for both shows went on sale in April 2026. The card ultimately comprised 5 matches. Cody Rhodes versus Gunther for the undisputed WWE Championship. Rhea Ripley versus Jade Cargill for the WWE Women's Championship. Brock Lesnar versus Oba Femi. Becky Lynch versus Sol Ruca for the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship. And Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu in Tribal Combat for the World Heavyweight Championship and Anoa'i family tribal chief status.
Can we maybe now look at what happened on the night? Like the key results?
Opening match. Cody Rhodes defeated Gunther to retain. Broadcast replays confirmed Gunther's foot under the bottom rope during the final pin, creating controversy without a restart. Rhea Ripley retained over Jade Cargill. Despite B-Fab and Michin aiding Cargill, Charlotte Flair's intervention helped neutralize them, and Ripley won with Riptide after surviving Jaded. Brock Lesnar defeated Oba Femi. Multiple F5s, repeated Kimura attempts, a chokeslam by Femi, and an F5 through the announce table culminated in Femi's first main roster loss. Sol Ruca then defeated Becky Lynch to capture the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship, countering, hitting Lynch's own manhandle slam, and finishing with the Soul Snatcher. Finally, Roman Reigns defeated Jacob Fatu in Tribal Combat to retain both Raw's World Heavyweight Championship and his standing as Tribal Chief. The no disqualification environment featured ring steps, a table, a toolbox targeting Fatu's hand, an exposed turnbuckle sequence, a low blow during a kickout, and consecutive spears, including one through a table. Fatu landed the Tongan death grip and mighty moonsault for dramatic near falls.
And the presentation details. Who framed the show for viewers?
English commentary was provided by Michael Cole and Corey Graves, Spanish by Marcelo Rodriguez and Jerry Soto, Italian by Michele Posa and Luca Francini. Alicia Taylor was ring announcer. Referees across the card included Danilo Amphibio, Jason Ayers, Jessica Carr, Dan Engler, and Chad Patton. Backstage interviews were conducted by Kathy Kelly and Byron Saxton. The kickoff panel: Joe Tessitore, Big E, Corey Graves, and Peter Rosenberg. The presence of localized commentary, in particular, anchored the event's Italian identity while maintaining global continuity. In terms of critical reception, we observe a generally positive profile. Multiple outlets praised Lesnar vs. Femi. Forbes graded it A+. CBS Sports likewise A+, citing smart booking. Ripley vs. Cargill drew A-level marks as a superb WrestleMania follow-up. There was debate about the opener's 12-minute length and the rope break finish. Rhodes vs. Gunther often settled around B+. Some argued the card lacked seismic headlines, although Sol Ruca's title win supplied a decisive newsworthy moment. Bleacher Report and 411 Mania reflected this balance. Strong in-ring, selective reservations about finishes and timing. On a personal note, as a mathematician, I find wrestling's blend of structure and improvisation oddly familiar. One plans the theorem's proof, then the proof, in contact with a live audience, reveals unexpected lemmas. Also, Brock Lesnar leaving his gloves and boots at WrestleMania, then returning weeks later to throw multiple F5s, reminds us that in both algebra and entertainment, symbols may be recontextualized.
What comes to mind next is, could we pose a few big questions to guide the rest of the analysis?
This logically leads us to three inquiries. Historically, how does staging a PPV in Italy map onto WWE's expansion strategies? Counterfactually, what if the referee had immediately recognized Gunther's rope break? And prospectively, how might WWE continue innovating in international markets after Turin? Big question one: historical context. We chart a pattern, build anticipation through early announcements. In September 2025, Nick Khan signals the first Italian PPV. Then, in February 2026, Triple H names, dates, and locates the show, bundling Raw the next night. The dual booking maximizes operational efficiency and embeds presence in the host city. Distribution leans on regional partners, ESPN in the US, Netflix across most international territories, Supersport in sub-Saharan Africa, Abema in Japan, thus diffusing friction for distinct audiences while maintaining a unified live window. Second, we see narrative mechanisms reinforcing market entry. Paul Heyman's March 2026 favor to Gunther, earned by saving Heyman from an attack, converts backstage political capital into a front-stage match contract with Cody Rhodes. This cross-brand instrumentality stitches Raw and SmackDown threads, yielding a premium match that opens the pay-per-view with immediate stakes. In simpler terms, expansion is not only geography and distribution, it is also the narrative scaffolding that justifies marquee bouts tuned for a debut market.
I'm curious about the local impact. Does having Italian commentary and back-to-back shows really matter for the domestic audience? Or is it just a production convenience?
It is worth noting that localization and continuity are not cosmetic. Italian commentary by Michele Posa and Luca Franchini functions as cultural scaffolding. It contextualizes stipulations, such as tribal combat, and deepens first-time PPV engagement. Reusing staging and international commentary setups across both nights keeps the brand's visual grammar stable, while letting Monday Night Raw immediately metabolize Sunday's developments. For example, Saul Ruka's title win could receive instant follow-up. Thus, the city experiences not a transient spectacle, but a 48-hour narrative residency.
So, I guess the expansion in Italy reflects a bigger European strategy, using consistent production, localized voices, and a distribution blend to make the show feel both global and local.
Precisely. Historically, we see WWE layering operations, storytelling, and media partnerships to create durable entry points. Turin is exemplary of that methodology. Big question 2. The counterfactual. Suppose the referee immediately recognized Gunther's foot under the bottom rope and called a rope break. The match restarts, eliminating the controversy. There are several plausible branches. 1. Rhodes still retains after an elongated finishing sequence. This yields a cleaner outcome but reduces post-match grievance, perhaps lowering the fuel for a rematch claim. 2. Gunther capitalizes on the restart, potentially dethrones Rhodes. This would invert the card's headline architecture on night 1 and recast SmackDown's main event scene for the summer.
If Gunther had won there, what would that have done to SmackDown's storyline ecosystem? Would it push different contenders forward, or change who faces who next?
Theoretically, a Gunther title win at the opener would have created an immediate recalibration. SmackDown's pursuit narratives would pivot from chasing Rhodes to measuring themselves against a newly crowned champion with distinct stylistic traits: methodical chops, power, and submissions. Rhodes, in turn, might be granted an automatic rematch or seek redress through management mechanisms, possibly entangling Paul Heyman's contractual leverage further. We can infer that Monday's Raw, staged in the same arena, would have amplified the fallout. The two-night anchor allows instantaneous narrative feedback loops. Importantly, such a pivot would have interacted with the rest of the card's optics. Lesnar versus Femi, already the night's critical darling, might shift from co-headline spectacle to the event's de facto centerpiece if a title change overshadowed other retentions. Saul Ruka's surprise championship win, the event's clearest headline as it happened, could have shared or ceded the spotlight, depending on the magnitude of a world title switch. Counterfactuals like this illuminate how finish choices distribute narrative mass across a card.
Maybe it's just me, but it makes me wonder about fan perception too. Would a clean restart and still a Rhodes win satisfy more viewers than the controversy that we actually saw?
Arguably, yes and no. Clean outcomes help closure. Controversies extend conversation. The reviews suggest time constraints capped the opener's ceiling. A restart could have added minutes, potentially increasing its grade ceiling. Conversely, the rope break debate furnished Gunther with a defendable grievance without undermining Rhodes' legitimacy. From a booking calculus perspective, the chosen path preserved the champion, generated rematch currency, and left oxygen for other matches to claim the night's emotional peak. Big question 3. The forward-looking inquiry. How might WWE continue to innovate internationally after Turin? Several vectors present themselves. Media partnerships. Iterate on the ESPN-style simulcast window in select markets, timing the free sample to the card's first major inflection. Maintain Netflix's broad carriage internationally, while leveraging regional incumbents like SuperSport and Abema. Localization. Expand multi-language commentary rosters. Deploy targeted pre-show panels that pair local sports broadcasters with WWE talent. And refine graphic packages and on-site signage to mirror domestic aesthetics.
If I may suggest a concrete angle, what new markets might be plausible, given what we've seen in Italy? Like, where could the next first-time PPV be effective?
Without overcommitting to specifics, the criteria are instructive. 1. An established or rapidly growing fan base, measurable via digital engagement. 2. A credible distribution partner aligned with WWE's desired window. 3. Arenas or stadiums that can support two-night operations for cost efficiency and narrative continuity. Under those conditions, we would expect continued European diversification, selected Latin American urban nodes, and parts of the Middle East or Southeast Asia, where venue and media infrastructure are mature. The Italy template, PPV plus a next night Raw, can port to any city meeting those constraints. On audience engagement, experimentation can proceed in 3 domains. First, content architecture, stacking cards with coherent rematches, as Ripley versus Cargill and Lesnar versus Femi demonstrated, while anchoring main events to cultural stakes, as in Reigns versus Fatu's Tribal Combat. Second, access design, regionally optimized pricing tiers, and impulse-friendly upgrade prompts during simulcast windows. Third, community presence, integrating local outreach events around the two-night residency to naturalize WWE as part of the city's weekend rhythm, rather than a one-off incursion.
That was helpful to think through, actually. And the Lesnar-Femi case seems like a reminder that even divisive outcomes can succeed if followed by a strong narrative arc afterward.
Clearly, reviews split on whether Femi should have remained unbeaten, but consensus praised the match's structure and impact. Having an undefeated rising talent lose to a legend is an inflection point. Subsequent booking determines whether that loss becomes catalyst or capstone. Clash in Italy supplied the stage. What follows will define the arc.
To shift gears a bit, could we close by recapping the essentials, like a brief checklist to keep in mind?
To summarize, Clash in Italy was WWE's first pay-per-view in Italy, held in May 2026 at Turin's Inalpi Arena, with the next night's Raw in the same venue. Access blended PPV with streaming partners, ESPN in the US with the first-hour simulcast, Netflix in most international markets, SuperSport in Sub-Saharan Africa, Abema in Japan. Key outcomes. Rhodes retained over Gunther amid a rope break controversy. Ripley retained over Cargill with interference chess. Lesnar defeated Femi. Sol Ruka shocked Becky Lynch to win the Women's Intercontinental title. Reigns defeated Jacob Fatu in tribal combat to retain both the World Heavyweight Championship and tribal chief status. Our three big questions. Historically, Italy fit WWE's expansion pattern via early announcement, dual night logistics, and localized presentation. Counterfactually, a recognized rope break could have redistributed narrative mass and altered SmackDown's summer. Prospectively, innovation likely proceeds through hybrid media windows, deeper localization, and city as residency strategies. If this interests you, next time we might examine how media partnerships shape global sports entertainment. The ESPN simulcast and Netflix carriage form a particularly instructive case study.
Maybe that's something we can come back to later. Thank you for listening to another lecture. And thank you, Professor.